As gardeners, we often use words such as weeds to describe nuisance plants in our garden. But what is a weed and what are invasive species? Well, to explain everything, we've got Dr. Thomas Jones here from the North Wales Wildlife Trust. Thomas, let's start with a difficult one. What is a weed?
Yes, a difficult question without a definitive answer. The most common description or definition of a weed would be wrong plant in the wrong place. So it's inherently subjective. And because of that lack of a tight definition, it's impossible to give a definitive list of weeds.
Okay, so a weed is a plant growing in the wrong place.
Yep,
simple.
As simple as that.
So then, what is an invasive species?
So an invasive species has a tighter definition as a technical term. So when we're using the term invasive species, we're strictly looking at non-native species, species that have been introduced from the corners of the world. And as non-native species, we're specifically looking at ones which have a negative impact, either on nature, human health, our way of life, or the economy.
Okay, so here in a woodland, outside of the garden, we've got a couple of plants in front of us here. We've got a plant called pendulous sedge, and on the floor here, variegated yellow archangel. Can you put what you've just said into context?
Yes, so you've just nodded to one main factor, which is context. We've briefly spoken about whether a plant is native or not. Another factor we need to look at when distinguishing between weeds and invasive species is context. So you'd usually apply the word weed if you were looking at plants within a garden causing problems. And we'd apply the word invasive species in the wild, outside of a garden context. So with these two examples, if we start with the pendulous sedge, it can very well be described as a weed in the garden. It's a bit of a thug. You could also describe the variegated yellow archangel as a weed in the garden. Both are quite difficult to control. They spread very easily. But the pendulous sedge is a native species, and therefore we wouldn't apply the term invasive species. The variegated yellow archangel, for example, is an introduced species, introduced in the 1960s. Outside of gardens, in the wild, it has a negative impact on the flora that you'd normally find in a woodland, and therefore can be described as an invasive species. And it's actually listed as such in legislation.
Okay, so in the garden, both of these plants could be termed as weeds, but out here in the woodland, because pendulous sedge is a native, it's not invasive.
Yeah, it's not an invasive species if we're using it as a technical term.
And the issue with the variegated yellow archangel is the fact that it chokes the plants around it in this natural setting, whereas pendulous sedge, I suppose, grows in harmony or in balance with the natural world around it in this country. Yeah,
exactly. As with many invasive species, variegated yellow archangel spreads very easily and becomes dominant on the woodland floor. And that's its negative impact on nature.
Okay, so it grows at the expense of our native plants.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Thomas. That's really interesting. So Thomas has done his best to explain the difference between the two there and the differences within different contexts. But if you're still confused, don't worry about it. Go online, explore our Gardener's Toolkit to find out more.